So short announcement before I start. I got my laptop and all the shit stolen yesterday, so like that sucks, but whatever. I was just wondering, because I'm still here for like 10 days, if anyone living here has some shitty old laptop at home that they don't need, I'd be very happy to use it for a while. So just in case that's you, or if you know someone, like please let me know after. So yeah, I was already there yesterday, so I guess I'll skip the presentation, but you can read about it or otherwise online. There is the logo that did not load, but this is talk about Composer. Okay, so first of all, today I'd like to talk about a few use cases in more details, things that typically confuse people or that they just don't know they can do, and things like that. So I'd like to again, like I already mentioned this yesterday, but there is like I'd like to specify clearly the distinction between install and update, and this is where usually I already confuse myself and confuse everyone, but I'm gonna try. So install, just like well, okay, no. See, told you. I mean, I've been doing this a few times. It never works, but I keep trying. So the thing really is that I think most people see install and update as a way of saying, okay, like I want to install this particular package or update this particular package, but actually, like what you're saying is you're telling Composer to install or update the whole project, and then like Composer itself will do installations of some packages or updates of some packages or removals as part of that update or install process. But it's like there are two levels of update and install really. And maybe I'll leave it at that for now. I'll get back to that later with the log file. So one thing we have since a few months, I think, is the ability to install easily global utilities. Like, let's say if you want to have PHP unit installed globally, you can do it using this Composer global command. So it just works as a prefix to any other Composer command. So you just say Composer global something, and it will run that as if you would be running it in this global directory, which is like on Linux and OS X, it's gonna be like in your home dir.composer. On Windows, it's this longer path that would end here. So it just runs it there, and it installs the dependencies in this global location. So you can also like update your global tools and whatever. It's nothing really fancy, but it can help like for some really generic utilities. And then there are not so many of those in PHP, but it's maybe, I mean, I would say even PHP unit is maybe not a good fit for that, because like sometimes in your project you have things that depend on a specific version of PHP unit, and if you run it with a newer one or older one, you'll have problems. So it's maybe better to have like a local PHP unit installed in every project. It's up to you, but like one good example I think is this like PHP CS fixer from Fabien Potencier, which is it just formats code a bit for you according to the according to various rules, but by default it uses the PSR 1 and 2, and like this is a tool that just you run it on something and it acts on that, and that's it. Like it ends. It has really no connection to your project. There's no specific configuration or whatever. So I think that's a good fit for a global command. Yes. To install it really. Yeah, so that's, obviously you still have to add this directory to your path, and it's not like in user bin or whatever. There is no option for that, but let's see. Just wondering how you can hack it together. Yeah, but actually, I mean, I don't know how they do it on Linux, but I know npm on Windows, for example, it will install it somewhere, I think also somewhere local somehow. Like, they also add some directory to the path. They just do it for you, but so yeah, we could be nicer and do it for you, I guess. No, it's just hard to add stuff to a path on Windows, like without admin rights and all. But I'm not sure. Like, there's no flag, but maybe you can like, if you set the composer home environment variable to something else, like yeah. Okay, so if you need to fork something, like if let's say I work with Symfony, I develop an application and I find a bug in the framework. Usually I want to fix it because I don't want to wait like 3 months for someone else to do it. So I'll fork the project and then I'll do something like this. I'll just add the Symfony, like, so this is like my fork and not the official one. But as you see, I didn't rename it. Like I didn't touch the composer JSON because it's still the same, right? Like it's still Symfony. It's just my version of it. It's a bit different, but it can keep the same name. And in this case, I'm gonna start saying, okay, like we did a patch in the master branch, which is usually not what you do. Typically, you're gonna do like a feature branch. So that's possible. You can just say, okay, I require like this my patch branch. So composer will just prefix this dev dash to any branch name you have. So that's fairly easy to find them. But if you're confused about this, or if you forgot, you can use the composer show command, which will, like, if you list if you say composer show with the package name, it will just show you all the available versions, and so you should see your branch there. But now you have a problem, because most likely you have other requirements in there that depend on Symfony, being in version like 2.1 or whatever you're using. And like dev my patch is not equivalent to 2.1, right? So this just breaks. So what you want to do is using this alias feature. So you can say, okay, I want to install this particular branch, but make it look like it's actually 2.1. So that will satisfy the other dependencies on Symfony. Okay, so I already mentioned this a bit yesterday, but I'll quickly go over it again. And if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt. So if you need private packages, so the default way, I would say, is to start off like this, to just list your packages in the composer JSON. So you have like one repo for each package, but the thing is, I don't know, like if you are in a big company or you start having many reusable tools or bundles or whatever, plugins, then you're gonna have like in every project a list of 10 repositories there, and every time you do composer update, it's like it has to scan all those things and it takes forever, and so it's not extremely, like, it's not a nice user experience. So like one way to do it is to use Satis, and so you basically take the repositories you had here, you just move them out into a satis.json, you install Satis, and then you run it with a cron job. Like there is this build command, you just run it every 5 minutes or whatever you want, and every time it runs, it will just scan all the repositories, do this slow thing, and dump a JSON file that has all the metadata in it, so that then in your project, all you have to do is add one repository, which is your Satis repository. And this one Composer will just like read one file out, and it has all the metadata, so it's a lot faster than going to the GitHub API, reading all the branches, etc., etc. So you basically move this slow process and the repetition of all the definitions into one central place. Then for like security, you can like there are many ways to secure it, and like people always find different techniques, like either mounting it via some like SSH like remote disk thing. I don't know how you call that. Or you can also have like basic auth, or I don't know. Like it's up to you. Or you can just make a long private URL and hope nobody finds it. In the end, it's just metadata there, right? As long as your Git repos are actually secure behind, it's fairly safe, I guess. And then, like as a final step, one more thing you can do is to move this status definition into your global config. So there is this, like again in the composer home there is a config.json thing which can have a set of like default repositories and also like default configuration settings, etc. And so if you do that, it will basically be available in every project. Like every time you run Composer on your machine, this repository will be available. So it's kind of nice because you don't need to have it in every project, but on the other hand, your project not really self-contained anymore, and you kind of need like system settings to make them work. So it's there are ups and downs, and it kind of depends how you manage your machines, I guess. So yeah, if you do that at the end, you end up with really a very, very simple file, and your packages are just there. So when you deploy or build or whatever, there are two rules. One is to commit the log file. I said this 5 times yesterday. I'm going to say it again. Just commit the log file. And then you run install. You don't run update on a dev machine, on a production machine. You shouldn't run it on a build machine either. There's really like only developers should run update. Like this is made for humans, and install is made for everyone. But like really, those automated scripts and stuff should only use install, so that they use the stuff you tested with before. You don't want a surprise when you deploy something and the dependency gets updated and then like, there's a regression and your application breaks. That sucks. So really, commit and use install. Okay. Now, are there any questions about the stuff I just mentioned? Yes. Oh, sorry, I did not mention that. The no dev part is just saying like exclude the require dev. So like here you can have require and you can have a require dash dev block with like development time dependencies, where you would typically have like PHP unit and anything you need for like testing or building or whatever. So those would not be installed. Like typically that would be for production, you really don't want these. For the build machine, I don't know, like depends on your workflow and depends on many things, but generally you probably want it. Was there another question? Yeah.
Can we tag status?
Sorry?
Can we tag status? Or can we?
He's asking if we can tag status. There is an issue open for it, and I think you already nagged me on GitHub, but I don't have a laptop anymore. Maybe if you give me a laptop, I'll consider it. No, yeah, we should. I know. I'm always way back on tagging things, but does it really matter so much? It doesn't change so much, so it's not, you know, there's not as much risk, I think. But I'll try.
there any way of having the complete file available for all the users?
So you want to have like one central config for all users of one.
Having the status definition and not short for one user.
Yeah. Well, that's possible if you define the composer home environment variable in every user and just say that it's somewhere else. Right? It's the only way. Okay, so I'll go on with this? Or? Yep.
If you define the status class in the composer JSON file, then that affects the deployment process as well, right? Because it will use status for that.
Yes, what do you mean that affects the deployment process?
Well, if the status server is not in the same level as the deployment.
Yeah, sure. Like again, depending on how you secure things and how you like install things, it can be a problem, I guess. But I can't really help you with that. I mean, yes.
Can you have more than one environment? I mean, like no stages in
No. No. The reason is, I mean, there are a few reasons, but one, I think you don't need it. But obviously you don't have to agree with me about that. The other reason is just technically it's a pain in the ass to do. Like already one is like it was enough trouble. So yeah, no. But I think it works for most people. So we done? Okay. So now I just want to go through like one workflow, like one install or update flow, and just like mention a few things along the way, and hopefully this also clarifies a couple of things for you. So first of all, there's this like bootstrapping process, just setting up tons of things, reading the composer JSON, etc. So there is like also you have those scripts which run at this point. Like every command has a, well, not everyone I guess, but most commands have this pre-command name command script. So there you can hook yourself and have like some callback to do some things if you want. Most people don't use the pre one because at that point the dependencies are not installed, so it's usually way too early, but maybe you want to. Then we load the root package. So the root package is your composer JSON. Like whenever it says root package in the docs or wherever, it means your composer JSON. But it means your composer JSON when you install your project. If your project is installed as a dependency, it's not the root package anymore. Whichever project has it as a dependency is the root project. It's a kind of meta thing that it keeps moving, right? So on the first install or when you update, and it means like on the first install you don't have a log file yet, so it acts as an update. It will just like read the require blocks, the require dev stuff, and just create a set of installation requests for those packages with the version constraints you have. And yeah, if you update, it's also gonna do something a bit weird. Where you have like, if you have a dev master or dev anything version installed, like there is a little problem in there, in the way we, I mean, it's not really in the way we did things, but in the way the universe works, I guess. Like dev master, it's always dev master, right? Like it's dev master today, tomorrow if you commit something new, it's still called dev master. So the dependency solver, it just doesn't see that this version changed. Like it's like, okay, you have dev master, it's there, it's installed, it's all good. and there's another one, but you know it sees them as the same version. So what we do is on update we actually check all the dev packages and check if the SHA1, like the git commit reference, is the same as the latest available dev package. And yeah, so there, if there's a new hash, we actually force an update of the package. So with kind of bypassing the solver, because it just doesn't work really in the solver process. But that's a detail you don't really have to care about, I guess. It just works mostly. So on the other hand, if you install and you have a composer log file, it will just load the log file as a new repository of packages. Like if you open it, you will see actually have like a bunch of package definitions in there, and it will just create install requests for all of these. And so it just skips entirely your composer JSON. Then we create a package pool, which is just like a huge basket where we just throw packages in. And it has a few repositories. One of them is the platform repo, which is like it's your PHP version. Like it creates virtual packages kind of for the PHP version you have, for all the extensions you have, some of the libraries like that are embedded in PHP itself. So this allows you to add requirements for like, I don't know, like XML or whatever extension you want, just to make sure that the user has that installed. As we discussed yesterday, at the moment we don't install the extensions. If they are not present, you just get an error saying, hey, like no extension, so figure it out. But there is hope that this will be possible, especially since the good news of yesterday that like Windows Pickle, like the Pickle, all the Pickle extensions are now automatically built for Windows. Like every version is built for every PHP version, etc. So that gives me hope we can actually do it cross-platform, and that should be pretty awesome. And if you want to see those packages, you can use the show command with this -- platform. Then we load the installed repository, that's the one where if you go look in the vendor composer install.json, it's also a bit like the log file. It's just a large set of package metadata that describes what is installed. Then we have the logged repository, which is like the log file. We have the custom repos at the project level. So those are like if you define your status repo or whatever inside the package, like inside the root package. Then we have the global ones, so in the config, like in the central config. And finally, by default, we have packages unless you disabled it. And this kind of top-down is the order in which it will look for packages. So you see that if it finds something there or there, it will be preferred to one that's on packages. So that means if it's already installed, you don't need to install it. Then, like while we add all those repositories and all these packages to the pool, we filter them with stability filters. So there are kind of two ways to deal with this. One is just the minimum stability, which defaults to stable, and so by default filters anything that is not stable. And stable meaning just a version number. A release, like a tag with just a version number, is stable. If there is a -alpha or -beta or -rc or whatever after it, it's not stable anymore. So if you want, you can lower this to include like all the alpha packages, and like if you include alpha, it means you include RC, beta, and alpha. And if you put dev, you'll include everything. Like obviously that means you can use more like bleeding edge packages, but that also means you will bleed at some point. So by default, I would say like leave it stable if you, like, unless you really need to change it. But then what can be useful though is to change it only for one package. So you can with this @dev, or again like this dev could be alpha or whatever, it's just this @ and then some stability. This allows you to just like lower the stability for one package at a time. The only thing is that this does not recur to the dependencies of this package. So if acme foo is itself depending on dev packages, you're gonna have to define those with @dev and like to whitelist kind of everything. So it can be a bit complicated. Like if you do require a ton of dev packages, I guess using the minimum stability is gonna make your life a lot easier. But kind of depends on what you're working, like if it's some new project or nothing is stable yet, or if it's a more established project, I guess. Then there's the big step of like dependency resolution. So we create a solver, we have the request which contains like all those installation requests from the step before, and we have the package pool. And we just check it all until something comes out or an error. If you have conflicting dependencies, or if you are missing an extension, etc., you'll get an error. Otherwise, we get a set of operations to execute. Now, by default, like it will just take the latest version that it can find for any package. Which means, again, if you allow dev packages, by default, it will just install everything in dev master version, probably, like the closest dev it can find or whatever. If you don't like that, you can say prefer stable true in your JSON file, and this will make it like do something a bit strange, which is going like as high as it can with the version numbers, but as stable as it can at the same time. So if you, for example, if you combine this with minimum stability dev, by default you wouldn't get any dev installed anymore unless you really need one. So if something requires dev master, it will get installed, but if it would be required as like just a wildcard, so in any version is fine, then we'll take the latest tag that is the most stable. So that's probably a better setting, but we can't really change the default without freaking out everyone. So, and so yeah, at the end you have this list of operations which can be like install, update, or remove. So while it executes the operations, you have a set of flags which can influence that. So there is like prefer source and prefer dist, which will change the way it downloads packages. So by default, it will take the dev packages as source installs and the non-dev packages as dist installs. And what source and dist means here is like source is it's going to be a git clone or svn checkout, and dist is downloading a zip file usually. So the reason it kind of splits it is just that the dev packages are more likely to be updated frequently. If you're using dev master, you usually have like new commits every day or something, so you'll have frequent small updates, which makes sense. Like if you just do a git fetch, you get only a few things that changed. On the other hand, if you install a zip file, you would have to re-download everything, like the entire code base every time. So I don't know, maybe it doesn't make sense, but it is the default. So if you don't like it, you have various ways. either you use this prefer source or prefer dist, which will just force one way or the other for all the packages. Or you can also set that in your global config. There is a config option called preferred install, I think, and then you would go like source or dist, and that just then applies to every run, so you don't have to type it every time. Again, like if you have a really bad connection to GitHub here, maybe it's better to use the dist as the default, because like the zip files are a bit smaller, so might help. You can use this --dry run if you just want to see what's going to happen. So this will tell you, okay, we are doing an update of this package, removal of this one, installing a new package, but it doesn't actually do anything. So it's just output. And you can use verbose or just -v if you want more information. You can use 2 V's if you want a lot more information, and 3 V's if you're insane. So it just like it prints out more and more stuff. But like usually the 1V thing is kind of useful information. The rest is more debug info. But so for example here, like what happens when you, like if you do install as a source, like as a Git repo, when we update a package, if you have like the verbose mode enabled, it basically does like a git log between the version it updated from and to, and it prints you the list of commits that it just pulled in, or that just got removed if you downgrade a package. So this can be useful to kind of keep up with the changes, but up to you. Okay, then at the end it will just write the log file if you're doing an update, or if it's the first install. If you just want to update the log file because it nags you with this warning that your log file is out of date, so it says that when something in the composer JSON changed since the last time you ran an update. So it just sees that the file changed, but it doesn't know what changed. So it tells you this as a like gentle warning, because if you did change a dependency and you didn't run update, like that's pretty bad, I guess. But on the other hand, if you change something like the package description, it doesn't have any effect on dependencies. So in that case, you don't really care about the warning, and so if you just want to suppress it, you can run composer update lock, and that will just like update the hash, update the hash of the composer JSON inside the lock one, so it knows, okay, that's the new state. Then finally, you have the autoload dumping, which happens with like again those scripts before after. And there's this -o flag to optimize it. I mentioned it yesterday already, but I don't know. Like, who was there yesterday, actually? Okay, most of you. I'll say it quickly. So it just like it creates a slightly faster autoloader, maybe. That's the short version. And the maybe part is key, but like right now, it's hard to say if it will make your project faster or not. It kind of depends on the amount of classes you have and the amount of dependencies, etc. So you can try and see if it helps you, but it's like no guarantees. But yeah, I just wanted to mention here, like if you just want to like redump the autoloader, like for example, if you change your autoload config, then you need to do that. I mean, you can also just run an install or an update. It will do the same, but that's the way to just dump the autoloader. Then finally, we have this post update and post install commands, like the scripts. Now, there's one thing there, like, who uses Symfony here? Okay. So I don't know about the others. Maybe you don't have any post update scripts, but by default in Symfony you do, and I guess a bunch of other frameworks might have that as well. And they do things which are not necessarily a good idea in like when you're deploying something. So for production, like for your deploy script, maybe what you want to do is say just like no scripts, so it skips all the execution of scripts, and then after the composer install in your build script, you can have like the actual commands you want to run exactly. Because by default it runs things in like dev environment, for example, in Symfony, which just doesn't make sense if you're deploying to prod. So that's a good way to go around it. And if you just want to run one script by hand without like having to run the whole command, you can use run script as well. Again, any questions about what I just discussed? Okay. So quick words about troubleshooting. Questions. Okay. Sorry.
Question, but when you're using Composer and you use the self-update command, it looks like you always get the latest commits that you're working on. Is there a way like, I know that Composer right now is in alpha, but it's really stable. But is there a way to... But I've been using it like...
I know. I know. I'm just making excuses for a living. But it's
but is there a way to log in with the self-update to a specific task that you
no. No, so I agree, like in some rare instances like it happens that there's a bad merge or just a bad regression and everyone is screwed if they update. And I know this is bad, but I mean it's bad and good at the same time, because the thing is, due to the way it works, and I know it's kind of unique, like most projects have fairly, like regular releases and stuff like that, and people update at their own rate. And here we took the approach of saying, okay, it's like almost constant delivery to all the users. I mean, obviously you don't have to run self-update, but most people do it regularly, and like there are some really good sides to this. Like when we do fuck up, the news comes very quickly. Like, I mean, obviously it's bad for the guy that hits it, but it's very nice because like the feedback loop is extremely fast. And also like when someone reports a bug, if you can just say, okay, like, it's fixed, and that's it. Like just run update, like run self-update in 2 minutes, and you have the latest version, and you're done. Don't have to wait 2 months for a new release, etc. So it's definitely a kind of double-edged sword, and I don't know what to do about this. I think long term, it definitely, like once I'll stop calling it alpha, just to be sure. I guess at the point where it's stable, it will make sense to have a sort of like a self-update with a dev flag or whatever if you want the latest, and otherwise you just get the latest release. Yes? Yeah. No. No, but it's not a bad idea. Maybe we should actually just. I mean, the problem is, like, we could say, okay, whenever you self-update, we just keep the current version you had somewhere. But the thing is, like, where is somewhere? It's always, sounds easy, but then you start thinking, and you go, oh fuck, and then because if you put it somewhere random, people will scream at you that you're polluting their file system. But yeah, sure, maybe. Yeah, no, I mean it's not a bad idea, definitely. Like I think this would be good to have a like self-update, like rollback mode, where you can just say, okay, like you guys destroyed my day, so just, yeah, it's a good idea. Like if you want to report it on GitHub, because I'll forget. Yeah, and if you want to do a patch, like bonus points, but at least create an issue. Okay. I'll go on, and then there will be more time for questions, I guess. Oh, okay. Yeah, 15 minutes left. This is short. Because there are not so many problems. Right? No. So what happens if GitHub is like giving you hell? Well, you can use prefer source, which usually, like, if the zip downloads of GitHub are down for some reason, usually the source stuff, like the git clone, will work. Maybe not. If both are down, then you're in trouble, and I'm sorry. But like for now, that's the only option. As I mentioned yesterday, I had this secret unpushed project I was working on my laptop that got stolen then. I have a backup at home, but like I'm not sure at which stage the backup is. So I hope I don't have to do a whole lot of work again. But yeah, we'll see that next week. Okay, so if you have any weird stuff happening, I think the first step is to run self-update, and if you just did, well, I'm sorry. Like then, if you just did, you should run like with rollback, and it's gonna be awesome. But yeah, like in most cases, the latest is actually the most stable, but it so happens that sometimes we mess up. So there is this new command as of a few months ago, which is called diagnose, and like that's also a good way if you're having really weird errors. This will just, like, it mostly does like a bunch of network checks and configuration checks, etc., to kind of make sure that your setup is working properly. And so there it will, like, it just tries to identify common issues and to give you solutions. Doesn't always work, obviously, but it's like there are fairly common problems, like people behind proxies having issues and things like that, where this will usually pick it up and give you a hint how to fix it. So try that before coming on IRC and complaining that everything is broken. Or don't use proxies, because really, I don't know why. Updating your depths as well, like, because some people also like to report issues when their project is broken because their dependencies are broken, and like, I mean, there's a bug in whichever library they use, and we are to blame, obviously, because we installed it. So maybe updating there as well will help. If it still doesn't, like if you have really weird problems when running updates or something, sometimes removing the whole vendor deal helps. Like, it really shouldn't make a difference, but I think there are still a few really like edge cases where it can be in a bad state, and this will actually like unlock it. And if it's still not working, feel free to like report a bug, but please do include the full output. And full output means more than just like the exception message you got. It's really like everything from the command you ran, ideally the directory it was running, and the full output. And like bonus points if you use this -vvv, so we can like get all the insane output, and this can help to debug things. Again, just a bunch of links. I guess you know them if you're already using it. And that's it. Thank you.